Got the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block. Helmets, casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your check. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, recruit. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Geeks Vegas Lines, NFL, Daily Fantasy Football, and Betting Angles podcast. This is NFL Week 2. We are presented by DFS Army and sponsored by No House Advantage. And I'm going to talk about No House Advantage in a second. Awesome new sponsor, new spin on daily fantasy props betting site. But before that, I want to talk about our format and introduce my partner in crime, the man with the plan, the man with the golden coif, John Statsational Alessia. What's up, my brother?
Appreciate that, man. That's a great intro. I'm actually using a different hair product today, so I'm glad you noticed.
I have hair envy, in case that wasn't clear.
Be happy to give. I got plenty coming out of places I really don't want it to come out of, so I'm happy to share some of that with you.
As we get older, but I'm going to tell you something. I don't want to hear about your hair products because, you know, the only hair product I use is that spray shit that Ron Popeil sent to thicken it up a little bit. You know what I'm talking about. Actually, you don't.
Yes, I do.
You know about that. All right.
Dude, I spent a lot of nights up at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning watching infomercials. I
have to tell you, that stuff really works. Now, I want to talk about a new format for the podcast today. Last week we went about 2.5 hours or some intensely long amount of time. So we figured out a kind of a little way to condense it. We're gonna focus in on 4 or 5 what we're calling premium games that we're gonna spend a lot of time breaking down, and then we're gonna kind of fast round the rest of the games. We're gonna focus on the Saturday or the Sunday main slate of games. We're gonna skip Thursday. We're gonna skip Monday. We're going right for the Sunday specials. And again, as always, we will be looking at all of the games from both a daily fantasy football as well as a betting angles perspective. Now, before we get into all of that, I want to tell you about our sponsor, and we love our sponsors. Our sponsor is called No House Advantage, and they're a new take on daily fantasy sports, which uses the prop betting angle to create contests amongst you and your friends or in large format GPPs. And the cool twist in their contest, John, and I really like this, is you set a weighting on each prop. So it's not just that you're going to pick 5 or 6 different props and whoever gets the most right wins. That's a pretty simple format. With No House Advantage, you're getting the ability to choose the weighting of a specific prop so that you might say, oh man, this one is so weight this one for 5 points, whereas the other ones might be weighted for less. And that also kind of removes ties, and it goes away from just being a game of who gets the most props right and more who gets their most confident props right. How do you like that, John?
It's an interesting. I like when all these new games come out, especially people watching this are probably a little sharper than the average person. So whenever there's a new game, jump on it, take advantage of it. You
nailed it. It's always softer. And these types of games really do remove the sharks. They're not going to really get involved. Like the sharpest people are not going to get involved in these smaller types of tournaments and contests and these sites because they've got their sights set on the giant contests, the giant prizes. So there's a lot of availability, a lot of softer competition, and especially if you know your fantasy sports, you know already daily fantasy, you can get in these and just crush these props. So sign up at nohouseadvantage.com, and if you use promo code ARMY during the sign up, you will get a $20 deposit match. Now, John, before we get into the full breakdown, there's something I really have been wanting to talk about, and it's what I think it's on the sports gambling side, and I kind of want your take on this, but I believe this is the ultimate advantage that a sports gambler can get in NFL betting, and that is getting the sharpest line for every single bet that you make. I've heard, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that the difference between a winning better over time and a losing better over time is who gets the better line. I mean, much more so than are you really great at picking one side or the other. How much of that is true, John?
A lot of it. So you'd actually be shocked, or the average person would be shocked about some people who are pro bettors are actually not trying to pick winners and losers. They're really just picking off some of the best lines that are out there, advantageous lines that are out there. So there are guys who sit and in Vegas now. It's a little easier where you could go online and do if you have multiple books. But
we're about to show you how to do this. Really
exactly. Easy. But there are guys for years would be in Vegas with their screen up, looking for the best. So if they can get a point better on a game at one casino, they'd run to that casino and do it. I had someone doing it for me in Vegas for years. So they would run from casino to casino. They call them runners, and try to pick off the best lines. It's put it this way. I believe if you can just beat the closing line in the NFL by 1 point, you will be profitable over the course of the season. So if you know nothing other than beating the closing line by a point, you will be able to pick something like you'll have like a 53.5% win rate or something like that.
John, I'm going to show you something, and this is going to blow your mind. It won't because you know of it, but I'm going to share it with the public because this is a secret that not a lot of people know. Now, what you're looking at here is on the DFSArmy.com site under NFL Live Odds. Okay, you click on Live Odds, and you're going to see what is a consensus odds, and then the odds, the current live odds on a number of different sports books, depending on your state. So right now, for example, on this screen, and I just want to show this real quick because when I saw this, I have to tell you, my eyes popped out of my head. Right now, we've got Illinois opened up on the state banner right here, but we can open up whatever state we want, whatever legal state has a bunch of different sports books we can take a look at. And John, I just want to take a look at these over-unders, just the first game, because on this screen alone, I can go to, so let's say I want to bet the over on the Bengals-Browns game on Thursday night. I might be on PointsBet. I might be on Sugar Hill. FanDuel has it for 43. Sugar Hill has it for 44.5. So essentially, just by not checking the a comparison odds tool like this, I don't have a runner in Vegas. I don't need one. Right here, I could just check this tool and be like, holy shit, I need to be betting this on FanDuel. But let's say I wanted to bet the under. Well, I might want to go to Sugar Hill, right? I'll get a 1.5 advantage. And John, what shocked me the most is that these 1.5 point discrepancies are everywhere. The books do not line up. They just don't.
Yeah, quite often, and especially early in the week, you'll see some of these discrepancies. And then on the lesser liquidity sports, maybe like a college basketball or something like that, you may even find, even college football, which we're in that season now, you may find the situation where you could even play a middle. But it's really nice to have it in front of you.
It's all here. We got it all.
If you're unfamiliar with playing a middle, that would just mean you're going to play in this instance, you're going to play the over with one sports book. You're going to play the under on another sports book, and you're basically going to risk the juice to win double your bet, because if it falls in the middle or it pushes one side, if it falls in the middle, you're going to win double your outlay, and then if it pushes on one side, you'll win one bet and push the other. So I do know people who do that, and like I said, certainly back in the day when you had to get in your car in Vegas and jump to casino, there were people doing that. There's still people who do that, but it's so much easier now. If you're in a state with legalized sports betting, especially, and you can do it, obviously everything's dependent on the size of your bankroll. But if you could open up an account with multiple books, you're going to be more profitable over the long run. We see it in golf. I post golf bets every week at SportsBetArmy, and I mean, you'll see huge discrepancies in futures lines. It's not just golf. All sorts of futures where because there's not a lot of liquidity. So the less liquidity you have, the bigger discrepancy you may have. One sports book may have futures. Let's say the Super Bowl futures. They're taking a ton of action for whatever reason on one team, and that's going to change the odds on the other teams, and you're going to get maybe a price on a team that you're interested in. Let's just say you're interested in betting the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl. Well, if you have 5 or 6 different books to choose from, the odds are pretty good that not all of them are going to be exactly the same, and then you could go ahead and pick and choose the best odds. Bottom line is, over the long haul, you want these type of aggregators, and you want to be able to see where your best lines are. You are going to be it's going to improve your ROI and your profitability tremendously.
This is only for if you care, right? Some people don't sports bet for an ROI. They don't care. They don't mind losing money. It's just about the action. I get that. I'm down with that. I understand it. But if you care, I just couldn't believe it. I have to say, I was legitimately shocked. We've had this tool in the works, right? But to see it live week 1 and see the discrepancies, I'm shocked because NFL is so efficient in setting markets that even right now, as I look at the spread on the Bengals-Browns game, man, there's a full 1 point differential. And when you talked about playing the middle of that, right? Now, I don't know if this game closes, 6 point. Now, I don't know if I want to go that far and arbitrage to that extent. I think I'd need a little bit more even than a full point. I'm not sure. I'm going to defer to the pro better yourself to kind of figure stuff like that out if it's worth arbitrage situations. But I definitely am smart enough to know, hey, if I want to bet on this game, I already have a bet out this week. I have a bet out on the Rams, right? And I took the -1 line on the Rams. But as you could see here, if you go to a different book, because I smashed, of course, the DraftKings book because that's what I got, but had one of these other books, look at the other ones are -1.5. I don't want that, right? So if somebody signed up, for example, on FanDuel for this bet and they got -1.5, I got -1, I've got a better chance of winning that bet. They could win by 1. So those are big differences, guys. This is a free tool on DFS Army. You go to live odds. You can check it out. You can put your state in here. You can see the comparable odds. So I wanted to talk about it because I legitimately was shocked at the spreads here where it was a point and a half at times. Really, really surprising stuff. And I think this is the benefit of this industry being so new where, people haven't been comparison shopping because when they figure this out, you will see that these bets do not have a discrepancy. So I'm begging you guys, take advantage now. Those of you who are betting in legal states, and if you see a bet you like, you can just smash it right here on this tool. It will take you right to that sports book, right to that bet. You can just click it. It's very, very easy. So I want to talk about that a little bit on the betting angle side of things. A little tool to help you improve your game without having to do much. Just pay attention here and always get the sharpest line for whatever you do. I love that Sugar Hill and FanDuel are really different because if I was betting depending on which side of the bet, I'd go to the different one and get the 1 point advantage. So there we go. Now, with all that being said and that out of the way, let's get this off the screen and let's get down to business. Game 1. So the format we're going to do again, we're going to focus on some featured games that John and I have selected to talk about in depth, and then we'll go through the rest of the slate one at a time. And we are going to start with a very exciting game, kind of an interesting game. We've got the Chiefs. The Chiefs are always awesome. They are 8.5 point underdogs taking on the Chargers. Game has a 47.5 point total. And now, John, we learned some things about both these teams this week. We learned on KC that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the real deal. He is going to be the workhorse, and he's the best back on the team. We also learned that he's not necessarily, or at the very least, he wasn't necessarily heavily involved in the running game for the Chiefs week 1. Now, the other thing that I know about the Chiefs as a team, and it's something that you'll see in my notes for the DFS side in week 1, it's very difficult, and I actually would love your opinion on this. It's very difficult for me to stack or ever want to stack Mahomes because there are too many weapons on the team, and it's very difficult to predict week to week who he's going to go to. So I found that when I stack Mahomes in tournaments, I'm adding an extra variable that makes it very, very difficult to be right. Because if you're going to give me a player like Sammy Watkins who is going to go off 1/3 of the time, and you're going to give me a player like Tyreek Hill who's going to go off 1/3 of the time, and you're going to give me another player in Travis Kelce who's going to go off, half of the time, and then you add in a couple of side pieces and some other things, man, it's really hard to get the stack right. So I'm really curious as to how you treat Mahomes overall for daily fantasy. Well, let me get the Chargers side real quick. The other thing we learned was that the Chargers offense is going to be really ugly, and somehow they figured out that not throwing to Austin Eckler is a good idea. What the fuck is wrong with them? What's wrong with Anthony Lynn? Why would you take your best weapon? The coach said our new scheme does not favor passes to the running back position. Like, they changed their scheme to fit Tyrod Taylor, a journeyman Jag quarterback, and they're eliminating their best play and best player, most explosive player on offense. What the fuck is wrong with them?
Yeah, I mean, that's the frustration with fantasy football, right? It's not so much talent as it is coaches. Like, if we could talk to every coach in the league on Saturday night and they were going to be honest with us, I mean, the advantage is tremendous, more so than probably any other sport, because it's so much dictated on what the coaches are going to do going into these games. We have an idea. You can listen to these guys talk. You can follow the beat writers, and then they do something totally opposite, or they do something contrary to what everyone in the market thinks they should be doing. So yeah, I mean, Eckler not getting the touches made no sense to most of us, and and the offense struggled. So, and they probably should have lost that game.
Well, I want to add in, and then the coach after the game says, "Oh yeah, we changed the scheme so that Eckler won't be thrown to as much." Oh really? Well, why'd you think that? Because he was your best player in the passing game last season, so you figured let's change that so we could lose more? Like, what is their goal here, John? Are they trying to get a high draft pick?
I don't know if that's their goal. I'm pretty sure he's trying to win, but yeah, I always like the coach who could adapt to the talent around them, as opposed to the guy who is going to force feed his system when he doesn't have the right talent. It's a little different. Well, it's actually not that different. I mean, look at a guy like Belichick, right? Considered maybe the best coach of all time. He's got a far different quarterback now than he's had for 20 years. And you'll see him, he'll adapt. He's going to change. They're going to change what they do for the personnel. I mean, he's going to run the same type of defense, and he likes to plug in the guys that he has, but your quarterback's the most important position, and his skill position players. He adapts. They adapted. When they had Randy Moss, they ran a different style of offense than they ran without Randy Moss. They were putting record numbers up. So
by far the best coaching staff in the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you have to adapt to. If you're not capable of adapting in all walks of life, then you're doomed for failure. So yeah, when you've got that nice system going and you could plug it in, especially in football, if you've got the quarterback and you've got certain pieces, then you can just kind of fill in. It's the whole argument about running backs, and which I agree with, where I wouldn't pay up for these running backs. Who a lot of these running backs got great deals last week. I wouldn't be paying up for running backs. To me, once you get the quarterback, then you're set. Then you build the system, and then you start, kind of plug and play these guys as you go. But that's for another time. In this game, yeah, I mean, now you certainly have to downgrade Eckler if this is what they're going to do.
I do not think that we can count on Eckler as a 6 receptions, high floor. I think he's going to get his touches, and this is a spectacular matchup. You can't get better. It won't get better for the most part in terms of the actual matchup, but man, we just cannot count on them throwing to him if to the point where we can trust him in cash games. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. I think cash games are out of the question. Obviously, everyone's up. Everyone's playable when it comes to GPPs. It's just a matter of what kind of risk you want to take. But yeah, I mean, if you're of the mindset that was a one-off and the market's now going to totally fade him and you're going to jump in on him, by all means, that's probably not going to be me. I'm going to kind of. I don't like to overreact to week one, but I do have to take. I've got to put some weight in what coaches say. and what they do, and the fact that they won. Now they looked ugly, but they won the game. That's kind of all coaches worry about. When you lose and you try something, you're more apt to maybe switch it up. So yeah, I'm a little concerned here with Eckler, and adds to some of the frustration for all of us fantasy players.
Two more questions here. So, number one, what do you think of my point about Mahomes and the difficulty of really using him as a tournament play in DFS because of the extreme number of weapons that the Chiefs really use, where it's just, it's hard enough to get the Mahomes 2 standard deviation unit above the mean output performance day right. But when you have to both get that right and also pick from 3 or 4 potential weapons, 1 or 2 of which maybe won't deliver, it just makes it really, really difficult to be right, on the odd side of it.
It of course it does, but and I was just looking, I was just going to look up, and then I forgot Mahomes wasn't in they weren't in the Sunday slate. Yesterday I was going to try to look up what some of their stack percentages were, and I can't do that. So, but how I play it is I don't play him any differently. He's got weapons. The thing, there've been guys like Breeze is one of the guys in the past who's had some weapons, and he sort of spreads it out. He'll throw it to 8 different guys. I used to play him a little bit differently, but I think they've got their set guy. Yes, I know Watkins can go off, but to me Watkins is like it's like a once or twice a season maybe. So I don't get too concerned with that. To me, I think if you focus on the main guys, Kelsey, Hill, as far as stacks, eventually it's going to pay off. I don't like to continually chase. I like to have a game plan that I sort of will use throughout the year. I've got certain, let's say certain variables. I like to limit the amount of variables, so I'll have certain constants, so to speak. So how I set up the type of stacks I'm doing, 1 wide receiver with quarterback, and then coming back with a wide receiver, tight end, pass catcher, whatever it is on the other side. Try to do the same thing. I try to do the same thing every week, because it's not going to work some weeks. I mean, you're going to have one week where it's 2 pass catchers and a running back on the same team with the quarterback, and no pass catcher on the other team is going to be the nuts lineup. I mean, it happens, but I'm going to try to play the percentages and try to play the same type of stat. I'm not going to try to change what I do week in, week out. So I'm not going to try to pick the week that I think Sammy Watkins is going to be the guy. I'm not going to pick the Hardman week. I'm just going to go with the fact that I know there's going to be a Kelsey week in there, right? So if we keep banging out Kelsey, Hill's going to have a monster week. So if we continue to do that, and I'm not saying I'm always going to have a small piece of those other guys as well, but I think the moral of the story is I'm just going to play it. I play him normal.
You play him normal.
As I would any other quarterback.
All right, so the other thought I have on this game, just overall from a daily fantasy standpoint, is just Chargers defense is actually pretty good, and the one thing the Chargers are kind of good at is slowing down a game. I don't know how much any of that matters when you're talking about the Chiefs' offense. So in a normal scenario, I really don't like using anybody against the Chargers because they're one of, or at least traditionally, and I think with Tyrod even worse, one of the slowest sort of paced teams in the National Football League. They're going to have long drives. It's going to be the quarterback running it for a first down. They're just going to try to drain the clock. They're going to try to play super slow. They're as unaggressive of an offense as there is in the National Football League, and especially the choice not to throw to Eckler now, who's their pretty much only explosive player on the team. Do we think that affects the potential output? I mean, this is a fairly high game team total for the Chiefs, but the game total overall is pretty low. So does this one have a lot of DFS appeal? Or maybe this is that week, especially with Mahomes priced all the way up and right alongside Lamar Jackson level salary, to where outside of the most massive GPP, maybe I might not be super excited about the pieces from this one.
Well, I think it still has appeal. I agree with you. I mean, in my numbers, and a lot of it goes back to last year, I don't have this as one of the higher yardage type of games or scoring games. I had it pretty close to where we're at as far as the total, but I don't have a ton of passing yardage in this game. Now, that's just a projection. It's a guide, and we have those numbers up on DFS
Yeah, it's
Army.
another tool. It's called the Statsational power rankings tool. It's
Right.
both on DFSArmy.com and on SportsBetArmy.com under the NFL tab.
Yeah, so I'm not going to fault anyone if you want to go ahead and fade Mahomes. I mean, this probably be one of the better spots to not go that route. But Mahomes, he wasn't great last week from fantasy perspective. I don't believe he was in the winning lineups for the showdown.
Nope,
if I'm right,
just barely missed it.
Yeah,
just barely. So the Nuts did not have, or my man. Oh shit, I can't remember now. But we had one of our subscribers take down that contest. G Money, who was it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But now I feel bad because I forgot the name on the spot here. But we had somebody take down that contest, and yes, it was a no Mahomes lineup, a rare no Mahomes lineup in that tournament.
Yeah. So I mean, you were able to fade Mahomes. I mean, he was close, so you didn't want to totally fade him if you were MME. But yeah, I mean, on a single game slate, I mean that's just the way it is in the DFS world, right? So we've got 12 games, 13 games, I guess, on the main slate this week, and so yeah, I mean, I could totally understand fading Mahomes. I'm not gonna be a total fade for sure in my MME stuff, and I may actually be a little heavier here than some people looking for a little bounce back from Mahomes. I like Kelsey in this spot quite a bit, so I think Kelsey will probably be my highest owned tight end. So if I'm going to use Kelsey, I'm going to probably want to use Mahomes as well. And one thing about Mahomes that is different, and I think now with Edwards-Helaire, is you can actually stack him with the running back as well. I think there's going to be an instance where he's going to go off on a lot of dink and dunks to Helaire, and I think you could potentially see a situation where that stack pays off.
Yeah, I'm going to wait and see. These rookie running backs. I'm just not sure how they're treated in terms of how much passing game usage they're ready to accumulate. We did see that, and we'll talk about him in the shorter breakdowns. Jerome Robinson from the Jaguars got something like 6 receptions. Hey man, rookie, what's up? So I like that, but Helaire, I think they only threw him once in the last game, so I'm not sure 100% how much he's there to be a passing game piece, but they didn't use him there week 1, so I want to wait and see a little bit that they throw to him. But if they do, I think it's going to be spectacular. Let's move on to the next featured game of this slate that we have chosen to break down in depth, and that's the Falcons at the Cowboys, with the Cowboys coming in favored at 4.5 point favorites, 52.5 point total. Big total, John. Now, last week, we saw the Dallas defense actually did a pretty good job against the Rams passing offense. Not so much in limiting the total yardage. There was a lot of yards in that game. I think maybe even over 400 total yards in the game, but they did a pretty good job of limiting the scoring of the Rams, which are a vaunted offense. Flip side, the Rams, who I think are an elite defense that people are sleeping on, did a great job of limiting that Dallas passing attack. All the passes went to Amari Cooper. All of them. 14 targets. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he dwarfed everybody else in terms of targets and just target share of his team for the Cowboys. And, of course, Zeke looked spry. On the flip side, we saw Atlanta go bananas in the passing game. The usual result, they lost, but they went crazy in the passing game. Julio, Ridley, Gage all produced incredible numbers. From the running back position, Gurley basically slid into the Devonta Freeman role, 50 to 60% sort of share of carries and targets. Not bad, but nothing that's going to be elite most weeks. So give me some betting angles, John, on this game. Cowboys are 4.5 point home favorites. Do we see it's a pretty high total? Sometimes Dallas can play a slow game. Do we want to look at the under here? Is there anything that stands out to you about this one?
From a betting standpoint, nothing. The game doesn't jump out. I would have had this right around 4.5 myself. I would have had the total a little lower, so I think possibly the total's high. I had the total at 51. when I did it. But yeah, I don't play a lot of totals, but obviously from a DFS standpoint, we want to pay attention to what these totals are, and this game kind of jumps out from a yardage standpoint when I do my numbers that this is the highest passing yardage game that I have on the board this week. So, and I think that makes sense. I mean, Atlanta, when we looked last year, that was one of the teams that we wanted. They were always a stackable game. Atlanta, Dallas comes in last year. They were the number one offense in football yardage wise. Like you said, they made a lot of mistakes last week in that game. Probably should have won that game. Then they get the bad call with Gallup. I know they threw a lot to Cooper. Gallup is a bad call away from having a 100-yard game himself, or just thereabouts. I don't remember how long that pass was, but he was over 50.
It was a 50-yard potential pass that they took away. There was also a terrible coaching decision not to kick a field goal to tie it up with 11 minutes left in the fourth. What the hell's going on, man?
Well, the analytics, the analytics tell you to go for it there. So
No. That was the most 2020 thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, hey, we're in a fucked up year. Everything's upside down. My kids are home. There's no school anywhere. And pandemic is going wild. It's raging. And with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, on a 4th and 3 from like the 26-yard line, it wasn't even, from the 2. It was like, even if you got the first, this is why I don't believe with that analytics, John, because even if you got the first down, there's no guarantee that the next you're getting a touchdown out of this. Take the field goal, tie up the game, remove any possibility of falling behind by more than one score. There is no excusing that decision. I don't care what the analytics says. Forget the analytics. Listen to the geek. I know shit. I was like,
yes.
What the fuck are they doing? What is this?
Well, you know how they figure it out, right? The you figure out what they have an expected score for each play from what position where you are on the field, and then what you do, what the down and distance is, what you're expected to score from there. So I don't have I'm not staring at the numbers, but I'm sure you're projected to score more than 3 points, or you're expected to score more than 3 points in that situation. And you've got to take into account your probability of missing the field goal. Also plays into account. All those things play into account. So basically, I'm telling you why the analytics say what they say to do. Teams actually should be going. They should be going for a lot more fourth downs, and they should be going down to the goal line. I didn't have as much of a problem with that play as you may have. Tying the game still doesn't guarantee anything. The other team could come down there. They're going to get the ball. They come down and score the game.
You know what it does guarantee? Not that this happened, but it guarantees that you, and again, I don't know that that's why they lost. I'm not saying that. But it does guarantee that you won't be behind by 2 scores on the next time you get the football. You'll, at worst, just have to tie it up again. But if you let them be up by 3 and then they score a touchdown, you're basically, the game is over. So I don't know. I get the analytics, but sometimes you just got to say, what the hell are you doing? This is not on the fourth quarter with that much time left. Tie it up, bro. Tie it up. Don't do that.
I totally understand, but
all right, let's talk more about this game because
we'll jump in. But so like you said, now you Cooper did the most damage there. But again, we're talking totally differently if they don't make that would look like a pretty bad call to me. They don't make that call at the end of the game, and we're talking about it totally differently because Dallas is going to probably at least tie the game at that point, possibly win it. So who knows? That call was obviously weighed heavily on the outcome of the game, but it also changes the outlook. So Gallup, no one really paid attention to. He makes that catch. It's a 100-yard game. He gets the bonus. 6 catches. Was it right? He had 5 catches for 50.
Yeah.
So he winds up, 6. He had 3 catches for 50, and then he gets 4 catches for more than 100. Who knows? Maybe even catches the game-winning touchdown. So, one call changes the whole game. So I love Cooper here in this matchup. I love stacking this game in a million ways. We haven't really talked about the Atlanta side of it.
Oh, so much to like.
There's so much to like on the Atlanta side. That's the tough thing about these offenses that are really good from a DFS standpoint is they're usually not just one wide receiver or one running back. I would say, yeah, are we fading Gurley? No, but like I think you were kind of alluding to the Atlanta running situation hasn't been a great one for fantasy in a few years now. So if you're going to go light anywhere in this game, it's probably going to be on the Atlanta running backs, Gurley in particular.
We learned that it's got any speculation you might have had. Hey, we're going to change what we do and bell cow a single running back, and they just didn't do that. That is not what they did.
There's no reason to do it, quite honestly, for them. I mean,
I could think of a reason.
Well,
for fantasy,
exactly.
But
for them, they're Gurley's. Yeah, I'll get it. I could get into the whole Gurley thing. Gurley's not one of the elite backs. I don't think he ever was, even when he was getting those kind of numbers. My personal opinion. And again, this all goes back to the situation that you're in. So you've got to find running backs, all positions really, that are in the ideal spot. These running backs now. Kenyon Drake. Well, I guess we'll talk about. All of a sudden he's a first round draft pick in fantasy, and he's going to probably be highly owned this week. He's in for 2-3 years in a situation where everyone's kind of waiting for him to do something, but you're in the wrong situation. So Gurley here again, he's gonna just be another. He's a big name in a situation that probably isn't going to do well. You're going to have that week where he's just going to fall into 3 touchdowns, and I mean it's just going to happen. And if it happens, it happens, and he beaches. So I would focus less there. Zeke should be fine in this one, but I think you really want to focus on the pass catchers in this game, and I think that's where the love is, finding the right combo. I have no problem if you want to pivot off of Cooper and go to Gallup. Same thing with Jones if you want to go to Ridley in this situation. Gage is getting a lot of love here on. I'm sure if you're in a season-long leagues, everyone was picking Gage up if he wasn't drafted already.
Let me point out that Gage was one of my bold calls in the offseason for get him on every one of your best ball teams. He was available in the 19th round almost every time. And that dude carried a lot of my best balls week 1 because, Drake and Eckler certainly didn't.
I would be leery now about, not leery, you're going to have to play it if you're MME, but Ridley off the monster week is, we can't expect 36 points again from Ridley. And I wouldn't necessarily say that if he was the premier guy in this game, but you still got a pretty good wide receiver in Julio Jones as their number 1 guy. So, and Julio didn't have a bad week himself last week.
They all did well.
Seattle.
Every pass catcher except for sexy offseason pickup Hayden Hurst, who really didn't do much.
Yeah, and I did not understand the love of Hurst from in a season long stuff. I guess because Hooper had a good year,
that's what
they were just kind of hope. But that's a much different position and situation. The tight end has to actually be good. Like there's very few spots where they're like, oh, we could just plug any tight end here and they're going to be great. Doesn't really work that way. It's not like running back where you say. Like the Pittsburgh situation, hey, they could plug someone in. Kansas City, they could plug in a running back, and they're going to just kind of go. It doesn't really work with the tight end. So, yeah, I'd be very leery with Hurst. So really, you're looking at I would not don't force in Ridley because he had a good week. I think that's what I'm trying to get at here. Julio's still the man. I like Ridley quite a bit, but I think this is one of the rare situations where you're going to get value on Julio as opposed to Ridley, because I think now the market's going to overreact to the fact that Ridley was so good.
If you check the sites, the salaries have converged on those two a little bit more than I'd be personally comfortable with. Julio remains the top guy, but Ridley has shown, listen, he's legit and he's real, and he seems to have more touchdown equity on a week-over-week basis than what Julio does, for whatever weird reason it is that Julio doesn't score as many touchdowns. I mean, it's a real thing. So, really good game. Probably the most popular, or at least one of the most popular games to stack for DFS purposes this weekend. But let's pop on to another one. And here we go. Another very, very high total. And look at this. We got some high total games. Last week, nothing went over 49 points. Here we've got the Ravens only -7, John, at the Texans. Now, again, I know you told me that home field advantage doesn't mean anything. But I did hear those announcer guys and those home teams pumping in a little more crowd noise than you were expected. I didn't see silent stadiums at all. I heard a lot of crowd noise in the background, and I know it was being pumped in, but they were getting real excited. Away team kind of maybe fumbles. I hear that crowd noise going on. I'm like, yeah, but wait a minute, that's fake. There's just some dude out there turning it up and down. But still, I heard it. Right? So now, why are the Ravens only -7 taking on a Texans team that, Ravens just smashed? I mean, absolutely obliterated the Browns defensively. Now, I don't know if the Browns suck now on offense or the Ravens defense is spectacular. It's probably somewhere in between, but can the Texans do anything against the Ravens? They didn't even look that great against the Chiefs. Chiefs aren't that great.
Yeah, I mean the Chiefs
They're fine. The defense is fine, yeah. But it's not like the Ravens. I think the Ravens are an elite defense. Marlon, what's his name? Marlon Humphreys, elite cornerback play. Going to be draped all over Will Fuller, Big Willie style. Not going to be all in this one.
No, the Houston. I mean, to me, it's a tough. It's back-to-back tough weeks for the Houston offense. I don't have them. I don't have great projections here. I have pretty poor projections on the passing side of the game. They might be able to get a little bit going on the run, but the problem you're going to have is, do they get behind and actually stop running the ball? But you've got David Johnson there, who we've seen in the past when David Johnson was one of the top 3 running backs in fantasy. He could catch the ball despite first play out of the gate or his first pass target last week that he dropped, but David Johnson can catch the ball. David Johnson can run. So I still like David Johnson a bit in this matchup. It's going to really depend, like I said, on the game flow and what the score is looking like here. Lamar Jackson's always in play, but I'm not high on the passing side of this game for either team. I don't think Jackson goes off here particularly. I don't think so. I'm not going to be high on Brown. I'm not going to be high on Andrews. I'm going to be pretty light on this game, I think, in general, for a game that's, sort of a marquee game. You got 2 marquee quarterbacks.
And the highest total? What? You don't like it? I mean, it's a very high 51.5 pointer. It's Lamar. He's a little expensive on daily, but I mean, it's still Lamar. He's going to run. He's going to run a lot. On the run a lot note, by the way, we learned something about the Ravens running game last week as well. And we learned that we cannot rely on Ingram or Dobbins or anybody outside of Lamar Jackson because they split up those touches almost 33. It was gross. It was like the worst possible fantasy scenario to go down. And John, I actually think that you can't fuck with these running backs on the Ravens until somebody gets hurt.
I would agree with that. And then to add to that from a running standpoint, like you said, Lamar will do most of the damage himself, and he's one of the quarterbacks. If you want to say someone that I may play differently, I've spoken about this before. I could play Lamar without a pass catcher because he's got the potential to rush for a couple of touchdowns. He could give you running back numbers with minimal amount of passing yardage. So he could throw 150 passing yards and rush in. He might throw 1 or 2 touchdowns and then run in 2 touchdowns, and all of a sudden he's got, you've got a pretty big day out of him. But he doesn't really have the pass catcher that put up any numbers that are significant enough that are going to win you a GPP. So if you want to play some Lamars as a freestanding, no stack, I have no problem with that. And then also, if you're doing that, maybe not playing him or you could play him with a pass catcher on the other team. So
can I present an alternate scenario or kind of my thoughts because I know that's a little conventional wisdom with Lamar Jackson, but I have thought of that quite a bit. And here's my alternate scenario on it. I like that in cash very much. I think that Lamar brings the highest floor of any quarterback on a week-over-week basis by far, and it's not even close. Like, it's weird that his salary is very similar to Mahomes this week. Mahomes does not have anywhere near the floor that Lamar Jackson does every single week. But because he's priced up so much, and because his salary is, depending on the site you look at, either 1 to 2,000 above like average quarterbacks or your standard, Matt Ryan, Josh Allen style quarterbacks, sometimes even 3K above. The only way that Lamar Jackson is probably at his salary, and take this in for a second, hear me out. The only way he's going to end up in the nuts lineup for you, that 3 standard deviation. Now, I don't need the 26 out of Lamar. That's the cash floor I'm looking for. But I need the 40-pointer. I need the 38. I need to pay off on his massive salary. And he's got to literally absolutely decimate every other cheaper quarterback on the slate in order to be worth spending the money for. I believe in order for that scenario to come together, he does need to produce a spectacular performance from at least one of his pass catchers. So I am not into the idea of using Lamar in a massive GPP where I know that I need not 26 but 38 plus fantasy points out of him, and not at least getting an Andrews or a Brown, one of those two in there, because it feels like it almost has to happen. He can't. I don't see him running in 3-4 touchdowns. Like, the scenario of him scoring that many points is probably so out there that I'm better off in tournaments at least stacking him with 1, not 2, but just 1. Hear me out on it. What do you say?
Do you know he was? I believe that was the highest stack last week. Was Jackson and Brown.
Was it you that said there's no chance that Jackson is going to be in the nuts lineup? But what were we talking about?
No, I said the
quarterback.
No, I said it wouldn't be Breeze or Brady.
Okay.
Yeah, I said that game itself. I said you won't get that. That game will not stack. That stack will not, and they were nowhere close.
No, yeah.
Neither quarterback.
Okay, so that one. Okay.
That was the game. Yeah, no, Lamar's pretty tough. He's the guy. Now it's Mahomes and Lamar that are pretty tough to ever fade, just because of what they can do with their legs. Because if Drew Brees is not throwing for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, he's not giving you anything else.
I don't even think Brees had an average game for.
No, he had 150 yards or something like that.
Yeah, his team scored, but he didn't do anything.
The problem you're having with Brees as well is, they get inside the 10-yard line. All of a sudden, here comes Taysom Hill in, and that's limiting touchdown potentials. So he's running the ball, he's throwing touchdown passes. We talked about it on the pod with Cash Keg. I can't remember the last time Drew Brees was the nuts. So I'm almost at the point where I'm going to start Xing him out like I X out, some of these weaker quarterbacks. It's easy to say on Wednesday. It's tough to do Sunday morning. But
I want that X out list. Help a brother out. Like, as we go through them, let me know who the X marks are.
I will let you know. But back to this game and Lamar, like you said, I understand what you're saying. To get that 36, you don't necessarily need him to score 38 points to be the nuts in a GPP, or not necessarily the nuts, but to be the winning lineup. The one thing about football is there's very few.
They're not going to hit the nuts, but you do need. I think you need a special performance. I don't think the 26 pointer.
No, but see, the thing with him is he could get you there without it being. He could throw. He could throw 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers and run 2 in himself and be the nuts, right? So it could easily happen. I'm not saying I stack him personally. So I'm just kind of giving you the. I'm just saying he's a guy who you can, on occasion, not use with his pass catcher. But for the most part here, I did that initially because I didn't think I was one of those guys who just didn't think he was going to be able to throw the ball. And then, you had a week 1 last week. Everyone's like, oh, shit, he
can throw.
He's killing me.
I just think some of these perceptions carry over a little too long. That was like going into last season, but the guy threw for like 38 touchdowns, which is pretty much the best in the league last year. So he throws for touchdowns.
No, he can throw. I have confidence in his throwing. I'm just saying, as something different, you can go ahead and take a shot if you want. And I do like your idea where you use Jackson in a cash lineup where you don't have to necessarily stack him because he's going to get you that he's got that high enough floor where he's great in a cash game, and then you could kind of look around for other pieces and not try to figure out maybe which wide receiver to put with him. But I think the main takeaway from this game is stay away from the running back situation in Baltimore. I do like I like David Johnson. I just think Houston has run up. I didn't look who they play next week, but their first 2 weeks here, I think they've run into a bit of a wall. So I expect them to be 0-2 going in, but I think Houston's going to be a little bit better than people think. We might get some value on them on next week.
Absolutely. And one sneaky thought I had before we move on to the next game was just, the Houston side looks ugly from a matchup perspective, but Houston is one of those teams where anytime they're kind of far behind, they do make a comeback. They're a team that has a lot of firepower, a lot of explosiveness. So while I'm not messing with this in cash at all, I don't really want their offense, even Will Fuller, who looks spectacular like the focal point. I don't really want that in any sort of like what I'd call like a tight build, like a cash or single entry type approach, anything where I'm doing high dollar stuff. But in big GPPs, I do want a little taste of the Texans offense and some stacks built around Watson, just because I know that the Ravens are going to be scoring, and I like building the stacks around teams I know are going to have to be throwing the whole game to answer a powerful offensive opponent. So I'm just going to have a few in my, silly for the millie lineups because I don't think it's that silly for the millie, but I don't think it's going to be owned at all considering, the game total and some of these other things, because I think the Ravens defense are in a void for most people. But in this case, I think, Texans being at home, and I just know defense is unbeatable. So why not? All right, let's move on to the last of our 4 featured games that we're going to break down. We'll get to the rest of them in a kind of lightning round approach after this. But the next one we picked out, and this one's really interesting, we've got the Lions at the Packers. Packers coming in as 6-point home favorites, the 49.5 point total. And, anytime that Mitch Trubisky kind of picks apart your secondary and can stand in the pocket all day without getting really sacked, and that's not a good sign for the Lions defensively. They've been one of the worst pass defenses in the league for 2 seasons in a row. Now they got the Packers. And, John, my big thing in this game, the Packers are coming off a game where they ate up Minnesota, spit them out, chewed them up, spit them out. Literally every name on the Packers went beast mode. It wasn't just Devontae Adams, who was the clear, and he was my favorite play on the slate at wide receiver. In terms of a pay-up last week, that worked out really well. He was my highest exposure. But also, Lazard and Valdez-Scantling, all of these guys had good games. Not a lot of volume, but really good games. And the running game, everything worked for the Packers against the Vikings last week. Now they get a much worse defense in the Lions. And the other note I have is that if Galladay is back, and I hope that he is, that further increases my enjoyment and want of this game, because with Galladay in there, it increases the chances that the Lions will be able to keep up. So I'll throw this over to you. Do you see any betting angles of interest here? And does this line reflect Galladay being out? And is Galladay out even a guy who's going to move a line?
As far as moving the line minimally, very, very difficult for anyone outside of a quarterback. A few defensive players. Von Miller moved the line last week. There's a few guys when Watt was at his peak, getting hurt, he was moving lines. Wide receivers, Galladay, he might be worth a half a point to a point. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. We'll see when he comes. I think he's going to play. So I think this line is kind of. I think that line's already baked in with him in there. I think we see Galladay this week, but if he's not in, we'll see if there's any line movement. I think this line is actually a little high. So I almost think I feel like now I think it's high. Yet the entire world is betting the Packers. So all the money's coming in on Green Bay, which is understandable for basically every reason that you said. When the Bears beat you and are able to move the ball with Mitch Trubisky, and Aaron Rodgers is coming off a phenomenal game against Minnesota, nobody's going to bet the Lions here this week, and nobody is. So we've got 90+% of the money coming in on that side of the game. I'm trying to see where we're at on the total. Actually, and the over is being bet fairly well. So I kind of like this. I like this game to go over myself, the 49.5. If I was just taking it just eyeballing it, I think 49.5 is a little low on this game. So yeah, I like this game from a DFS standpoint. The Packers were, it's a similar situation that we were looking at with Atlanta. It's like, okay, you've got the marquee guy in Adams, you've got the great, I'll say Rodgers is better than Ryan, but you've got the veteran, solid, great quarterback, and now you've got these other two pieces that had really good games, but you've still got the main guy, right? So I would give the same advice that I gave in the other game, except the running situation is probably a little bit better here in Green Bay than it was with Atlanta. So you've got even more things to worry about from the Green Bay standpoint as far as which direction you go. But yeah, it's a green light ahead for Green Bay. On the Detroit side, I've got no problem here again. So I love stacking this game. I like Stafford in this spot. If I want to go the other side and take the other quarterback, I'm fine with Stafford. Galladay certainly. Jones is viable, and I just don't know about the running game.
Quintez Cephas was a target machine, the rookie wide receiver in Galladay's place, and he appears to be the guy who's going to replace Galladay when Galladay's out. Quintez Cephas.
Yeah, he was not a big pickup, but I did see some waiver wire activity just in case he's out. So I mean, on Wednesday, I don't have to make that decision today. I'm going to just go ahead and say that he's going to play. I know he didn't practice today, but we'll see it. We'll see how it goes as the week goes on. So it's a little tough to give a too in-depth an analysis on the Lions side. But from the Packers standpoint, I think this is going to be very popular. They'll be very popular stacks. You can easily then shift off of Adams and go down to one of the other guys. Who's going to be that guy? I don't know. I mean, the safer play. It goes back to, again, I said, people don't realize just how low owned these stacks are. Just because you think the stack is popular, and it is, I believe, like I said, the most popular stack last week was 5% owned. So don't be scared to take the best. Don't be scared to take what's perceived to be the best stack in a matchup because you're worried about it's just going to be so high owned that I'm not going to be able to. This is not the 60% owned running back that can't miss. This is you're talking a lot of these stacks are going to be in the 3 to 5% range of ownership. As a matter of fact, I believe that this was the highest. I think the highest stack was for one wide receiver. I think was Rodgers to Adams last week.
I just think Adams was like a really, really high owned. He was very, very obvious.
He's high owned.
So like if you had Rodgers, Adams was there too.
Right.
So like whatever Rodgers' ownership was, at least half of that probably had Devontae Adams in it. And if they were sharp, 100% of it would have had it. Yeah.
The amount of stacks. So Adams was like 20 some odd % owned, I believe, last week. The stacks of, and let me I have it written down. The Rodgers to Adams stacks. I want to say it was like 3%.
Yeah, it's crazy
in total.
I had that game stacked up, but Boston Scott shit all over that lineup.
All right,
a lot of my lineups.
You know what that stack? It was actually I'm wrong, right? It was 1.6% stacked.
Yeah,
Adams
that's crazy. That's
and I sent
crazy.
you. So I sent you. I sent you that list last week where I gave the probabilities of what based on the domination station and those projections. What the
Rodgers only 2.6% owned according to.
2.6% owned, which
Very
is why
low.
they were only 1.6% stacked. Those two guys. So I gave you, but when I gave you the list of what the probability was of the stacks of just a one-man stack with the quarterback pass catching stat, they were the Rodgers Adams was 5th choice, right? So I think I had, and when I say probability, I think I gave probabilities that they would score 60 plus points, which is where you want to be at a minimal on these stacks. They were the 5th choice. Actually, I have it here in front of me. So they were so this was not some crazy stack, right? Rodgers and Adams was not. You didn't. It just I want to kind of get the point across where you don't have to try to reinvent the wheel here. You don't have to try to figure out, you don't have to dig through the depths of the internet to try to find that fourth wide receiver who's going to come in because you think this guy's going to get hurt. And, you don't have to do that in these big slates. Aaron Rodgers, Adams, the number one wide receiver out there with a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's unowned, and it wasn't that hard to find, right? So it was the fifth best choice. So
those sneaky, silly, turd plays. That's for the single game, maybe a game slate. On a 4-gamer, on a full slate, you don't have to hit the nuts, so you don't have to mess with the super turd, out of the blue, crazy Quinton Cephas play, which actually would have worked this past week. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And if you brought it back, which I'm sure you did with Adam Thielen, those were probably your best lineups last week.
Sure. I know you posted. Alex was giving us the percentages. What was interesting is I believe those are the percentages in the Millie Maker that he's given us. If you went because I played the $100, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
You saw the percentages on Adams where it was higher.
Just a sharp.
I'm not sure about the Rodgers, right? So you assume that's a little bit of a sharper contest, but yeah, the percentages on Adams was like 25%, and that it was like 19% in the Millie Maker. So you saw it was a little bit sharper. Some of the sharper players were on that.
The more money you spend on a lineup, the less silly you're generally willing to get with it. Even for the sharpest of, even for the Sharks, $100 entry is not where I want to be throwing out my crazy silly for the Millie, loony bin lineups. You want to kind of at least have some semblance of, all right, this guy's in a good spot. Let me load up on him. All right, so with this game, the only other thing I'd mention is, in the running game, Adrian Peterson looked pretty good for the Lions, and why not? Okay, fine by me. I'm fine with it.
Man, this is another team that the running back situation for, I probably dating back to Barry Sanders. I can't remember. It just seems like every year we get excited about a Lions running back and then nothing.
This team produces nothing to the running back position, and it's been years of that. That's not going to change. Peterson will fall into the end zone. He looked like himself, his 2-down grinder self, and at at min salary on FanDuel or at 4K levels on DraftKings. Okay, I'll take a shot, get a couple shares. If you can cross 100 and get the touchdown, that's pretty much his ceiling, or he can even smash in 2 goal line plays. It's not out of the realm of things that could happen, but definitely not someone who's going to get much passing game work. And I think actually Peterson's workload will diminish week over week as, DeAndre Swift gets a little brought in, and then it'll just be gross and no one will do well. So not the best situation, but Aaron Jones is still Aaron Jones. His target share was the same as it was last year. Nothing changed with his role. So if you like Aaron Jones in any game and he's going to get about 16 touches. Last season he was a touchdown machine. We don't know what's going to happen this year, but he's always a good play, I think. All right, there's too many other good running backs though that are in the Jones price range that this week that I'm not messing with it myself. All right, let's move on to the lightning round. We're going to go through some of these games at a little more of a rapid pace, and I'm actually surprised that this wasn't one of our. This one just fell outside of our highlighted games, and that's Carolina, Tampa Bay. Panthers coming in as 8.5 to 9-point underdogs, depending on the book that you are looking at. Bucks under Tom Brady's tutelage. Potential loss of Kenny Golladay actually helps us a little bit with a much more condensed target share for Brady's pass catchers here.
Godwin.
Godwin. What did I say?
You said Golladay. Yeah, Godwin.
Oh, Godwin concussed in the concussion protocol. But John, this one stood out to me from a betting angles. You got to tell me, man, what did Tampa do week 1 to earn a 9-point spread against anyone? Who the hell are they? Shame.
Yeah, I like Carolina here as well. It's just too many points. I think it's going to. I do think this team's going to be better.
To earn 9?
No, they haven't.
What is this? What's happening in this world right now? Why?
No, it just looks like too. It looks like too much. I think part of it is the Carolina. we're not expecting much out of the Carolina defense. This should be a good spot here for the Tampa offense to look pretty good. But this is a game from a DFS standpoint. And Geek, you got to change the bottom because you're making me stare at Lions Packers. And
I don't have any. I didn't write them all out. I only did the feature games.
Damn it!
I don't have any more. I thought you knew the spreads.
No, I do know the spreads, but every time I look at it, I'm looking at the Lions. I'm going.
It's off the screen.
No, but the spread. No, the spreads are the spread on this game. They're 9-point favorites, and then what is the total is 47.5, which seems a little bit low to me on this one. Just want to look at my numbers and what I had here on this game because I know I have this as being a really good game for pass catchers and throwing. I've got the total a lot higher than this. I don't know what I'm missing, but I could totally see this game being a bit of a shootout. I love it in DFS. I like some Bridgewater here because Tampa you can get Tampa throwing the ball. At least that's what you could do last year. And again, they didn't give up great numbers last week. Thomas was obviously injured. Breeze didn't do much, but they did enough to win the game. But that's, as we talked about, that's kind of typical New Orleans. If Thomas isn't going off, they usually don't have anyone else that goes off outside of Kamara, and so I'm not too worried about that. I think Carolina could actually put some points up here. I think for a cheap option, Bridgewater's in play. I think Brady's certainly in play here. Don't forget about Scotty Miller here with Godwin out. Scotty Miller could be a really it could be I watched that game and it looked like he had a little bit of a rapport with
if Wes Welker and Julian Edelman had a baby together.
Yeah,
it would be Scotty Miller.
I mean, I hate to make the comparison because another white slot guy, but
Listen,
it is what it is.
Listen, man, at some point when you have a career as long as Brady's, and there's always a white guy in the slot that is your favorite wide receiver, we have to accept it. Not for any other reason than he likes the quick little. I don't know, but it is what it is. He likes Scotty Miller. He's his new Julian Edelman. Fine by me. I accept it. Mike Evans becomes very interesting with I'm going to say Galladay again, with Godwin out and him being the only game and the team talking about how they have to do a better job of getting the football. So there's a lot of reasons there. But are we forgetting a couple more things in the running game in this one? Number one, Christian McCaffrey is on one of these teams. I don't think a team with Christian McCaffrey on it should ever be a 9-point underdog. I'm going to bet this, John. I can't accept it, so I'm going to bet it. The other thing is Ron Jones Jr., a.k.a. Ron John, looks like he's the guy right now for Tampa at this moment. Could change, but Tom Brady leading the offense checks down to the running back a lot more than a Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston doesn't know from a check down. He doesn't do it. They could be showing, 3-man box, and Jameis Winston has got the running back. He's like, nope, I'm going to throw it. Pick 6. That's what I do. I'm good at that. I'm gonna keep with my brand. But Tom Brady's not that guy. He's going to check to the running back, and you saw Ron Jones Jr. actually having a productive game last week, and you've got a really, really bad run defense here with the Panthers. So can we play Ron John?
Yes, but I think ultimately, I think Fournette's ultimately the guy here. So I'm nervous.
He didn't do any 4 touches.
Yeah, because I think they're, he wasn't there that long. So it's going to take him. Is this the week that they kind of ease him in? I don't know. I think eventually, though, by the time we get to midseason, it's just going to be Fournette.
Spoken like a man who drafted Fournette and his high school.
I have him as a keeper. I've got him in one of my leagues as a. We signed contracts. I have him on the last year of a contract, but
it's a bummer.
But I do like. I don't think you bring in Fournette. I just don't think. I don't think Jones is the answer. I'm actually concerned with Evans a little bit. I don't think this is at this point in Brady's career. I don't think Evans is the guy. This is what I said last week. I just don't think, from a fantasy standpoint, Tampa is going to produce what they did last year. I think you're going to see if you just bet somebody that every single player from last year's Tampa team under
on the
goes
Brady will
under
do worse. Oh my gosh,
what they did last year, I like that bet.
Easiest
if someone
bet
was
ever.
willing to take it, they're just not going to put up the same amount of fantasy points as they did last year. I mean, Winston is just a fantasy gold for the guy, for his wide receivers. But as a quarterback of my team, I can't really have a guy throw 30 interceptions. But yeah, he's going to throw the ball all over the field. He's got a great arm. Brady is not going to. Here's the thing. What do you need to be a great down the field passer? I mean, you need the great arm, and a lot of times you need a little bit of mobility in the pocket because you've got to create a play. You'll see Watson, certainly Mahomes, those guys where they'll move a little bit in the pocket, create a little bit of time for themselves, and then fire the thing downfield. Like Brady's just not there now. That's why I like Miller. What you're gonna see from Brady is what you've been seeing from Brady for a number of years now, which is very quick. He knows where he wants to go with the ball before the ball snapped, and he's going to be looking for those 4, 5, 6, 7 yard type of passes. And he's looking at that. He's looking at his slot guy, and he's looking at his tight ends. And I think that's why I think you're going to have limited chances for Evans on the big deep ones. So I'm not high in there. I think tight ends. I think Miller are the best options here in this game.
I have to agree with you there. You also saw O.J. Howard finally get utilized, and he actually had a pretty decent game last week. And of course on the Carolina side, DJ Moore didn't do much last week, but he was still actually involved heavily and getting his target share. It didn't convert as well. Robbie Anderson got the big plays. He made the splash, but I still think DJ Moore is absolutely the guy there in the passing. I like DJ Moore. I like going back to him. Robbie Anderson with Bridgewater, all good. Tampa defense still good against the run, even though they didn't show it as much last week with Kamara. Kamara didn't really beast, just scored a lot of touchdowns. And so overall, yeah, I like this game on the Carolina side, both to cover the spread and also to produce better fantasy performances than what we might see from Tampa. All right, let's move on to the next game on the docket. And this is another one where it's really interesting from a betting angle's point of view. We've got the vaunted Pittsburgh defense. They are now 5-point. Actually, they opened as a 5-point favorite. They're currently 7.5-point favorites. The game opened before Monday Night Football played out as a 44-point total. The total is now 41.5 points. And what Vegas is telling us, John, and you tell me if they're wrong, because I don't think they are, is that Pittsburgh coming in to put the smackdown on the Broncos. Young quarterback, not ready for the heat, the smoke that this Pittsburgh defense brings. Almost a 40% blitz rate. They are one of the most aggressive defenses in the National Football League, and you can't run on these guys. I can't play Melvin Gordon, even with Lindsey out. You saw what Saquon Barkley did. He did nothing. 7 yards rushing over an entire football game. Faded him. Fucking crushed it Monday night. Came in 4th place in the big tournament because of the Saquon Barkley fade. Everybody who's a DFS Army subscriber knows about the Saquon Barkley. They also faded Saquon Barkley. They also made money Monday night. That's how we roll DFS Army style. Now, I don't know what that has to do with this game, but I'm not interested in this one borderline at all. So tell me if you could see, number one, a betting angle here, and number two, is there even any reason to sniff this game in daily fantasy? This what I think is going to be a stinker.
No, I mean this game could be a total fade. Outside of
actually, I want to say one thing: Deontay Johnson could be the highest owned player on the entire slate. He's priced ridiculously low at wide receiver on DraftKings, and we saw him get 10 targets. He's clearly the top target in this Pittsburgh pass offense. I think even more so than Juju Smith-Schuster, or at least an equal. And he's super cheap. I think he's going to be very highly owned on DraftKings.
I mean, what do you think as far as ownership?
I think it's that level where you shouldn't play him. Like it's like 30, maybe 28% in tournaments and higher. Like in cash, he's going to be the guy you pick in cash, right? And in tournaments, we might see 28% ownership on Deontay.
Yeah, I'm not in love with it. 10 targets last week. 6 catches. Got off to a shaky start, right? Lost the
if he doesn't get off to a shaky start, we're not even having this conversation because he would have put up, 20 plus fantasy points and we'd be like, oh, must play. And they didn't, because it was Monday night. Again, his salary didn't get adjusted for the role. He was out there 85% of the plays. He's just the guy there. I mean, he was out there, I think, more than Schuster was.
Yeah, no, I could totally see it. I just don't see this game scoring enough. I mean, at his price, absolutely, he's playable. I don't know if he's necessarily in cash. I see what you're saying. I don't know if he's necessarily a must play in GPP, just because I don't see this game being all that high scoring. I don't love this game outside of the defense here. The Steelers defense is in a good spot. They looked real good. I mean, I know it's hard to judge 1 week, and you're facing the Giants, and we still don't know what we're going to get from Jones, but. Man, they made it really difficult.
You want to hear something crazy? You want to hear something? And we'll move on from this game. It's not an exciting game to talk about. Yeah. There was a boosted bet, okay, that people thought was free money. The Barkley goes over 10 yards for free money.
Yep.
And can you imagine you fucking put your whole, people are lucky that those boosted bets have a limit. Like, they probably only let you bet $50 on it. What site was that did that?
I believe it was FanDuel did it.
Yeah, FanDuel had it. Everybody's like, "Oh, free money, I'll take it." And they fucking didn't get the 10 yards.
Well, I will say I'm a little concerned with Barkley, just on the whole with that team, and depending on the matchups. But
Barkley is not matchup proof. We saw it last year. No. He's got all this talent, but that team I think he's going to have a lot of great games. I just think if you're in a fantasy league with Barkley. If he has one more bad week, trade for him. The Giants' opening schedule is a little bit tough, but it's going to loosen up, and he's not going to be playing Pittsburgh and San Francisco and these Baltimore, these teams you can't run against every week. And I think Barkley will do fine when the matchup is neutral. I agree with you. You should be a little nervous. He's not matchup proof. He hasn't been, and he's not going to be because that team's offensive line is not good. All right, let's go on to the next game. Another stinker. Not a whole lot to see here, but maybe a couple of angles we can pick out. 49ers, Jets. This thing opened at -4. It's -7 now. 49ers all day, all the money on the 49ers side. 42.5 point game total. John, does anything stand out about the lines here that we should pay attention to or maybe bet?
I mean, nothing stands out. From a DFS standpoint, I think it's a stinker. It might even be low. It might even be low considering just how bad the Jets have looked. 49ers coming off a loss. I mean, it's probably one of the squarer sides, and it's possibly a side. Sometimes the square side's the right side. This kind of looks like a square bet, -7. A lot of people are going to be on this. What you're going to see a lot of people doing is teasing this game down, right? Yeah, they're going to they'll tease it down to a point, from 7 down to a point. Basically, you just need to win the game. This will be a very popular pick in survivor pools as well. The Jets just look absolutely atrocious. I mean, there's no where's the Bell's out now, and where's the offense coming from? Darnold hasn't shown he can do anything. They did have a good week from Crowder.
Yeah, Crowder did well. Herndon was out there catching passes. Tough matchup. I think both Buffalo's a better defense than they're given credit for as well. But I mean, without a running game, it's not good. There's not a good wide receiver on the team. To say Crowder is your best wide receiver, I like Jameson Crowder. I also like Scotty Miller, but they're on the same page. You know what I'm saying? That's the style of player we're talking about here. We're not talking about Allen Robinson Part 2. So it's just
Sherman. You have Sherman hurt. I mean, that's the only thing you could say here of note. I'm still not going to get too excited about this.
My one angle would be, with San Francisco missing all of their pass catchers as well, and maybe George Kittle for this game, they don't have that many weapons. They're going to be forced to pretty much run it because they've got no one to throw to. It's Kendrick Bourne. And fucking, Jerick McKinnon, Jerick McKinnon. Who are they throwing to? There's no pass catchers that are healthy. Pettis has shown himself to be terrible. Kittle might be out for this game. So there are some angles in terms of how are I understand the -7 because how are the 49ers really scoring? But I think they're going to score with their defense, to be quite honest. All right, let's move on to the next game. Can San Francisco line up McKinnon as wide receiver? Yeah. I mean, I don't think they did it last week, but he did play quite a bit, and he is a great pass catcher. So maybe they will do that.
I don't think you want to play this game from a San Francisco standpoint either, stacking it. Just because they're more than happy to just kind of run the ball. So I could see them, they get up 10 points and they're just pounding the ball. So
they will run and run and run in your face. I like Raheem Mostert. I don't mind J-Rock McQuinnan. He's back. They did not play Tevin Coleman almost at all last week, so it does seem to be these two guys now.
You gotta remember with Coleman, I believe he's got the asthma, and with the air quality.
Oh shit!
With the air quality there, I didn't expect them to use him all that much because for health. So I would take that with a grain of salt.
We have to. You know what? Thank you for reminding me, because that is a red flag in terms of looking at the usage last week and projecting it out for week 2. So that is a very good point that you just made. So we can't really look at the use. If Coleman's in the mix and it's a 3-man disaster zone, there's no way Mostert pays off his inflated salary. First of all, I was encouraged though they threw to Mostert. Where did that come from? Like, I'm telling you, we saw some crazy shit this week, and let's see what happens. But it was pretty wild. All right, let's go on. Another stinker here. We've got Miami and Buffalo. Buffalo at Miami, right? Buffalo opened as a -3 favorite. The line has since moved to -5.5. Miami 41. Listen, two things here. Number one, Josh Allen, you almost have to play him every single week. I don't care what the spread is. Should have a drink with me. I'm going to lose my voice. John, take it away. Give me a second.
Well, I'll just say this: certainly not one of the marquee games on the schedule. It's 41-point total. The entire world is betting Buffalo here. This is another game that kind of looks like they just want to suck you in with 6 points. I mean, Buffalo, playoff team from last year, looked pretty solid. Obviously, handled the Jets pretty easily. You've got Miami. Just is this going to be how long before we see Tua in there?
I
with
hope
Miami. I don't think it's going to be very long.
Yeah, but I don't listen. Here's the one thing. I love overreactions, and we can overreact like crazy. Patriots defense is great, not good. They're elite. I don't care who's on the team. The players, you said it earlier. Next guy up, they're still great. So can we judge the poor performance of this, I would say, explosive Miami Fitzpatrick helmed offense? Not a winning one, but an explosive one. And what they did against the Patriots, I don't think we can judge them. We got to wait until this or next week to really see.
You're going to have to wait another week because this is a pretty good defense that they're facing again. So I don't anticipate them doing much here. The running game there, the running back situation, I can't get excited about. Do I want to play any of these? Do I want to stack this? I don't want to stack the game from a pass catcher standpoint. I'm just going to pass on this. And it almost makes me leery here as well, similar to the San Francisco game, where do I necessarily want to stack Allen in this game? Because it may not really play out in the way where we're going to get enough points out of him. Yeah, he's another one of those guys who can run the ball in a couple of times himself, but I don't think this is necessarily a great stacking game.
Not a great on paper game at all. It's a shitty total. I would save this one for the milli stacks and pretty much avoid the stinker overall. But I just think Allen just finds a way to manufacture point, even in a low total game like this. I think Allen could get there, but I do prefer when the other team is scoring. And this is that very, very low probability game of being interesting. But the most likely is a Buffalo sort of defensive domination, and that's what the Vegas lines are reflecting. All right, let's move on to another one. Colts, Vikings, and this is an interesting game, man. It's interesting. Vikings, all right. Colts are 3.5 favorites right now, which is interesting in its own regard. And I'm very curious your feelings on the line after how Phillip Rivers looked nothing special last week. The game total, 48.5 points, has gone up since the open a little bit, John. So this is another game. I think it's a little more interesting than some of the ones, the last few that we discussed. But what interests me is twofold. Number one, why are the Colts favored? I thought that Phillip Rivers did not look good in this offense at all. Nothing special. Now, I do think that these old quarterbacks like Brady and Rivers on new teams are going to get better every single week because they're learning the offense and they're getting comfortable with their teammates. And on the flip side, why are they favored? What the hell's going on here? Like, Minnesota just got torched by Aaron Rodgers, so maybe it's like, hey, their defense is bad, but traditionally, Minnesota's defense is not bad. It's pretty decent.
Well, I'm gonna differ with you here and say that I don't think you're going to see Rivers get better every week. Like, I mean, he's certainly not going to get worse here than he could get worse, but he can certainly get better. But I think the implication there is he's going to somehow be very good when you say he's going to get better.
I just think maybe he'll get a little more comfort with his teammate. But he sucked.
I get that. He sucked last year too. I don't anticipate. I think he's at the point of fading. I know there was Paris Campbell was a big waiver wire guy this week. But yeah, I think for me, I think Rivers is going to be one of those guys that I'm not going to play, and I don't like him this week as well. I totally understand Minnesota getting torched last week by Green Bay. We talked about that. That was the best stack, and then all three wide receivers were just going off. I'm going to give him a one-off there. I don't see Rivers. I don't think Rivers is capable anymore of really putting up these big games. I think we've got to start we've got to stop looking at Breeze. We got to stop looking at Brady. We've got to stop looking at Rivers. And maybe even Ben. I know.
Pass the torch from the old guys. Pass it on. It's time.
Yeah,
these guys are old. They're Rodgers is older than. Wait, no. Rodgers came in the league after Rivers.
Rodgers is younger than those guys. Yeah. So Rivers came in with Eli and
that whole
Ben
crew
in 2004, but
and Breeze and Brady multiple years before that.
Sure. Yep. And well, you're asking about Hines or
this
Taylor.
one I want to address this Hines or Taylor because this is a great question, and it's a great question, but it's also a bad question. Okay, because the answer is Taylor by a mile. It's not even close. So Hines is going to get his. But what happened last week was Hines. Now, the beautiful thing about what's going on with Hines, he's not going to be a high volume guy. He's got the Woodhead roll. Part of that is going to be there are certain plays they run to the pass catching running back at the goal line. So Hines got those plays last week. He scored the touchdowns. But Taylor is going to get the bulk of the carries. And this is what's very, very important. He was used in the passing game. It's not like they didn't throw to Taylor. They're about the same price on FanDuel and DraftKings this week. So the correct play is Taylor. He will have greater touchdown equity on a week-over-week basis. He will have greater volume, and he will also be used in the passing game enough to hopefully supplement what's going on. Hines is going to play that Woodhead role, but I think there's a bit of an overreaction. This is my personal take, John. You'll give yours because I think this is the most important angle of this game, or one of the more important angles, although, I'd talk about the Vikings offense as well and see what they could do here. But Jonathan Taylor is the guy. It's not Hines. Hines is the flex play. He's the scat back. He's going to give you a couple good weeks, but Jonathan Taylor is going to have the volume. And at running back, we want touches above all other things. Every touch relates to a certain number of fantasy point potential. So I want to be really clear that even if Hines does have a better fantasy performance this week, Jonathan Taylor is the correct play when choosing between these two every single time. John, am I crazy for saying that with such conviction?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, you don't take a guy like Taylor. He's probably the best pure running back that was in the draft last year. I can't imagine not using him down at the goal line, which is where you get all your points here in fantasy. He got the touches. I mean, what they throw to him 8 times last. I think he caught every pass that
he caught. I think
6
it was
passes.
6. It was 6, but that was shocking. One of the things I do is I go through the fucking logs at the end of the week, and I was pissed at DraftKings for not releasing them until today, or like it was like a full day later than when they were supposed to. DraftKings FX team, you done fucked up, right? But I like to look at the player logs for every single player as I'm going through. I think they came out yesterday. Yesterday was Tuesday. Today's Wednesday, and but it should have been out on Monday, whatever. So 6 receptions, 6 for 6. My man is being used in the passing game.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So Hines got 2 touchdowns, right? So touchdowns are so tough it's the hardest thing to project. So give me 15 points with no touchdowns, and nothing crazy, right? He only had 9. Talking about Taylor now, he had 9 rushing attempts, but the 6 targets is really where my eyes. I think he's going to get more attempts here, right? We didn't even mention the fact that there's no Mac. He's going to get more rushing attempts.
Mac is out. He's got
Mac's
all
out.
of the rushing attempts.
So he's going to get all. He's going to get all those more, and then he's going to fall into some touchdowns here. I don't know how you want to use him down at the goal line. He seems like a perfect goal line type of back.
He is.
So, be careful when you just look at who had a really big week, and was that based on the fact that they scored a lot of touchdowns? Because touchdowns. You'll get 3 1 week and you won't have any for 3 or 4 weeks. So look for Taylor to get himself in the end zone and more targets, more touches. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I know we don't want to harp on these games too much, but it's a good question.
I will dive deeper into this, and we'll dive deeper into this in the Wolf Pack and in the Players Club as we get down to like DFS business. But I do have to say, and it's worth pointing out, that Taylor is so underpriced on FanDuel this week. He is a free square. He is a free player on FanDuel. And, I hate hitting the lock button and going 100% on my 150. But if you're ever going to do it, this is one of those times where you're probably going to want to do it. All right, let's move on to the next game on the docket. Jacksonville. Wait. Giants, Chicago. Wait a minute. Oh, my God. There's so many games here. We talked about Detroit, Green Bay already in the featured section. Giants taking on the Bears. Listen, another borderline stinker here that I guess there's some potential, but the Bears are favored by 5.5. The Bears are favored. The Bears. How the hell are they favored ever in a game? 42-point total. John, if I hadn't looked just now, if I hadn't just told you the Bears were favored at all, they're 5.5-point favorites, would you have automatically known, the Giants playing the Bears are definitely going to be the favorite here? Like, is that a definite for you? Like, would you have known that pretty easily?
Yeah, see, that line doesn't shock me, but it seems to have shocked it seems to have shocked a lot of people in the sense that, do you think that where did you think that line should have been?
I thought it would be like a -1. This should be a pick'em game to me. Both mediocre to bad bad teams.
You've got a team coming off of there's always the perception they came off a win last week. The Giants were the primetime game. Everyone got a chance to watch that. They looked awful, so it doesn't shock me there.
But they weren't beating the Steelers.
I know they weren't going to beat the Steelers, but they just look, it leaves a bad taste in the public's mouth when they see that. But on top of that, at 5.5, the money's still coming in on Chicago. So I'm not shocked at the line, and they can't make that line high enough because nobody wants to bet the Giants here in this. And I totally just got it wrong. So you were actually right. I had it backwards. They want to bet the Giants. They think the line is too high, but I think the line is probably about right. On this game with Trubisky, but the public agrees with you. They are betting the Giants side of this game pretty heavily. So I just want to look at my numbers quick. I mean, it's kind of it's neutral to bad, right? So it's not the worst game on the slate, but it's also not. It's certainly not the one that everyone's going to be targeting. Trubisky was pretty good, fantasy wise, decent numbers last week. I know I just heard Allen Robinson's looking for a trade, so that's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, we touched on Barkley as well. I think this is a tough spot for Barkley again, 2 weeks in a row. I'm not going to be high on Barkley. The Ingram, I mean, just atrocious. The Giant, just to let you know, if the Giants would have recovered that muff early in that game in the end zone, or Daniel Jones was able to throw a touchdown, I believe Ingram dropped one on that possession. I hit the primetime slate on for 300 on.
I was
on DraftKings.
What did you finish? I finished in 36, my best one. 8th? Oh man.
I had the best Daniel Jones Giants lineup.
Oh man. Oh, that's tough. But looking overall at this game, I'd increase the positive outlook for someone like Barkley here, but I don't really want to pay all the way up for Barkley. I don't think it's worth it. I will not have exposure to him. Just this game environment doesn't lend to it. Darius Slayton, he looked great. I will play him here. I think he's an explosive player. He's one of those GPP guys I just want mixed into my lineups every week. I don't need his team to do spectacular. Giants don't have anybody else to throw to. There's really a very, very finite set of weapons for this team. And Shepard being such a possession guy, really not a big play guy, it's really Slayton or Evan Ingram who are going to make plays for this team. So I don't mind either of those as one-off pieces here. You're right with Allen Robinson. My preseason love for Anthony Miller did pay off last week, but I was concerned about his lack of actual playing time. You know, he's on the field maybe only 65% of the snaps. Like, he didn't get a massive target share. He just did really well with what he got. But I think that's going to increase Love Miller all weeks, and it's fine. But this game overall, no, it stinks, and I don't like it. All right, let's move on to Tennessee, Jacksonville. This is interesting, John, and I'm not surprised. So I love the line movement here. Game total opened as -11 for Tennessee. Tennessee's at home. Tennessee did very well by all stretch, but Jacksonville played well too in their first game. Take the win, and now the Jaguar, the game has moved. The line has moved to -8.5 for Tennessee. I think there's one thing and one thing alone that stands out in this game from the Tennessee side, and that is Henry has destroyed the Jaguars. Derrick Henry has destroyed them in the past, and there's no reason to think that they've done anything different that will change that outlook. This looks like a smash spot for Derrick Henry. We saw what he could do in essentially what is a not good game, which was 33 touches, 20 fantasy points. I don't even know if he scored a touchdown to get there against the Broncos. And now we've got a much better matchup for Henry. Project the same number, 30 touches here, and probably a smash spot. He's one of my favorite running back plays on the slate.
Yeah, I think it's the best situation. I think it's the best running back situation on the slate. I mean, you've got the guy who led the league in rushing.
I mean, do we want to mess with Jacksonville here? Gardner Minshew looked really good. He was not throwing to DJ Shark, but rather Keelan Cole. Pick him up in your season-long leagues. That is your guy for this week. 10 targets and had the most target share of any Jacksonville wide receiver. DJ Shark kind of quiet last week.
He was. I was actually surprised when I ran just to prep for this. I was running some lineups just to see based on project without doing any tweaks, and I was getting a little bit more Jacksonville in here than I really anticipated. So I don't know how I'm going to tweak that come the end of the week here and the weekend, because on the surface I don't necessarily love it. I like the Tennessee defense here in this game. Like I said, you touched on the one side of this game that looks that really looks like the nuts, and that's Henry, the running game for Tennessee. Passing wise for Tennessee, I'm not that thrilled here. I don't like much stacking wise. So if I'm taking any pass catchers, it's going to be on the Jacksonville side, looking for them to maybe have to throw, being down. We don't like the running situation in Jacksonville. That's not a situation. Actually,
you know what?
I like. Although you've got Thompson.
We got to mention it. Jerome Robinson.
Yeah, Jerome Robinson and Thompson.
They look good.
Well, which one do you like here?
Not Thompson, man. I like Jerome, man. Jerome is a real running back, 16 carries, got a couple of receptions. And so he got the full workload for his team. So it's not that I like Jerome. Let's get this straight. It's that I like running backs who get a lot of volume that are cheap. So that's what we're getting with Jerome Robinson. We're just getting a guy.
Is it James Robinson?
No, Jerome.
Is it Jerome?
Fucking guy, man. He's a rookie. I don't know. Does he deserve us knowing his name? But I think it's Jerome Robinson. But James, guys, who's watching? I think it's Jerome. But nonetheless, if you look him up, he had receptions. He got all of the carries for his team, all of them. So it wasn't like, it was him and another guy. There was some. No, what is it, James?
It is James. Yeah.
You are it. Damn it. Shit. All right, I was wrong. So James, 1 reception, 28 yards. He did good with it. 16 carries. Not a great average, 3.9 yards, but not terrible. So he's 4,400 on DraftKings. He's super cheap on FanDuel. He's not a guy I'm loading up on. This isn't some free square situation, but I like him better than like Antonio Gibson and all this crapola free squares from last week. So, I think I'll get a little exposure. I think I will. But no, I think the play here is Derrick Henry, and that's it. Can't trust A.J. Brown.
No. Oh, no.
All right, let's move on to the next game. These are all the stinkers, guys. You don't want to get too crazy with these. We're almost to the end here. This is the last game, I believe, and let me know if we missed one. But we've got Washington Football Club taking on Arizona at Arizona. This is another really interesting game. The spread has gone up from 40. The total has gone up from 45.5 to 47.5 since the open. The spread has gone down from -7 to -6.5. Currently. And what's interesting to me is just, this is fascinating, John, from a DFS perspective. Arizona at home against Washington. Somehow, all of the salaries of the Arizona skill positions went down from week 1 when they were playing San Francisco. Why? Are the Redskins better than the 49ers defensively? Why? What? Because they handled the crappy Eagles offense with no offensive line, who always kind of suck and they're always overrated and they always come down to earth at the beginning of the year. We've seen this from the Eagles every year. Now, you've got Kenyon Dreezy priced down. You've got Kyler Murray, as I would say, the best value quarterback on the DraftKings slate. Look at how much cheaper he is than everybody else. If you haven't looked at salaries yet, which salaries aside, he's 6,100. He's priced below Roethlisberger. He's priced below Brady. He's priced below Josh Allen. He's priced below everyone, which is really crazy and a polar opposite of what they did on FanDuel. So I love Kyler Murray here. He is the potential cash paydown option at quarterback. Kenyon Dreezy, under 6K, excuse me. Why? He showed one of the few running backs that showed that he is a workhorse. Got pretty much all the touches for his team, as much as it was a brutal matchup against the 49ers. And DeAndre Hopkins, you talk about workhorse. Everything I ever dreamed about with DeAndre Hopkins and who he could be if they just got him the damn ball. Thank you, Keyshawn Johnson, for the quote. They finally did it. 16 targets, 14 receptions, 32 fantasy points against a brutal 49ers defense. So, rant off. I don't know why they priced him down. I don't understand it. But here we are. We've got a special opportunity with the Arizona Cardinals offense. I don't know what to say about the Washington team, man. I'm going to leave that to you, John.
Well, I appreciate that. So let me touch on on Arizona. Just, I think Drake right now, just kind of looking at it, one of my favorite plays for the week. So I really like that. I think Hopkins. I mean, this was such a good. I don't know if it was the best spot for Hopkins to be in, but it's an unbelievable spot when I'm talking about which team to go to. Arizona, that is. It's an amazing opportunity for Murray. I think he's going to make Murray just outstanding. I mean, I think he fits into what Murray can do really well. It's a similar style where he can kind of run around the field. We were talking about it before. Getting a guy down the field, you need to be able to have a little mobility to keep a play alive, to get that ball down the field when the offensive line breaks down. He's got that. If you get it anywhere near Nuke, he catches it. I think this is going to be a really special combination, Murray to Hopkins. So I like that stack in this spot. I like a little bit of Kirk. You go on the if you go over to the other side of the ball and Washington. I mean, yeah, they won last week. Super disappointing fantasy wise from the running back spot. I mean, we just didn't know. I was over the market on Gibson. I think you're going to see they'll be way down on Gibson this week.
Rightfully so. And by the way, that was another one for those of you guys who are watching this who are DFS Army subscribers. You were warned about that chalk. Bad chalk. That was one of the most obvious bad chalk situations that I think I've ever come across.
What was interesting was in the sharper games, Gibson was actually higher owned. So he was less owned in the $5 milli than he was in the $100 game. So FOMO. A lot of the sharper guys, FOMO. Yeah, a lot of the sharper guys were on him, but that those certainly guys did not pan out.
Those guys are absolutely addicted and slaves to the projection, and his projection was showing such a value, and I get it, but it was so clearly wrong. It was one of those times where I'm like, yeah, it says, the numbers say play this guy in cash, but I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing it. But everybody else did. It didn't harm you in cash, but I said I'm not doing it because it's so obvious this guy was not going to do anything. And against a brutal Eagles defense, part of bad chalk is if the defense that they're going up against is very bad versus if you wouldn't have played, like a different starter against that defense, why are you playing this kind of like out of nowhere cheap backup guy? It was still a bad matchup. All right. Got a question from the crowd here. Did I win this trade? I want to answer it because you did win it. Melvin Gordon, and I think you won this trade. Melvin Gordon and Curtis Samuel for Stephon Diggs and James Robinson. I say you won it. Listen, Curtis Samuel is basically a throwaway piece, but you give me Melvin Gordon for Stephon Diggs. I like that trade all day. I think you get a pretty good running back in exchange for a wide receiver who might take a minute to get comfortable with his team. James Robinson is just a throwaway piece in season long. So I don't think he matters. So yes, I think you won that trade. Here we go, guys. That'll do it. Did we miss a game? I just want to make sure that I didn't miss one here.
I don't think we did.
All right, awesome. That will do it for the Geeks Vegas Lines DFS and Betting Breakdown show for week 2. We want to thank our sponsor, No House Advantage, where you could play prop games for cash. It's an awesome game. Go check them out at nohouseadvantage.com. Use promo code ARMY when you sign up. They give you $20 deposit match to your you play with $40. Put in $20. They'll give you $20. Play with $40 in the prop game. It's fun and it's easy. And you know what? You got a lot of props just listening to the show today. That should be pretty easy money to take down one of those games. And the nice thing, like I said, about their little system is that you can put the weightings on each of the props as you see fit. I also want to mention John. If you like John, and I do, not just for his good looks, not just for his great hair, not just for the elbow to fist, the ladies know about that, but for his betting advice, go to sportsbetarmy.com and get signed up as a VIP. Here's how it works over there. They have betting models, Wall Street guys who put these models together, analytical models that will show you the EV on each bet. Then you have a bunch of betting pros, grizzly guys like John, cigar chomping, cowboy hat wearing. No, these are pretty much analytical nerds, in fairness. But they're going to share their bets with you. There's full systems being broken down. Anthony P's got the system. He's got like a whole hedge fund going over there. It is great stuff. Ryan's the numbers guy. You've got Anthony P with the program. You've got John.
We're on a tennis of all things because it was the U.S. Open, so I started giving out tennis. I mean, we're on some insanely sick run here with tennis. I mean, it's like 20-something and 5 or something like that in tennis right now.
these ratios, I want to get the word out because people don't understand what's like when you have some of the sharpest players in the world giving you sharing their bets with you and the reasonings behind them, and you're going on 20-4 runs. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm giving out my MMA bets. I've got a max bet 2 posted over there for this weekend's UFC event. I'm going to tell you right now, most people would have to pay that $49.99, and it's not even that when you use the promo code Geek. It's $39.99. It's ridiculous. Most people have that shit for one fucking bet. You're talking about all of that and the tennis and everything. And my max bet for this weekend, go over to sportsbetarmy.com, get signed up as a VIP. And, of course, if you are a DFS fanatic, as I am, you go to dfsarmy.com, sign up with promo code Geek, 20% off VIP. If you're not already a VIP, VIPs not only get our tools, not only get our cheat sheets, my cheat sheet, Geeks Picks, but also for every slate in existence, for every single sport. You know, John, I'm going to go off on a tangent here because I do the social media sometimes for DFS Army. One of my favorites is people like, oh, I don't need to pay for that. I can do that myself. Why do you need to pay for information? Oh, you can do it yourself. You can cover NASCAR, MMA, PGA, NFL, NBA, MLB, tennis. Did I forget any? Soccer, what cricket?
Can I just touch on that for a sec? I pay what some people pay in car payments and their insurance a month for information. Like you have to utilize. I'm gonna try not to go too long with this, right? But you can't do it like you were just kind of alluding to. You can't do everything. I am at the computer. I've been at this computer since 8:00 this morning, working on golf and working on the NFL, and then doing it. Like, there's only so many hours in the day. If I had to do everything on my own, it would just be impossible. And most of you out there have real jobs. You're working your 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You don't have as much. You don't have all the time to do your own projections or whatever. Utilize the information that's out there. There's plenty of good information out there, and over on our side, I mean, I use so much of what the other guys are doing over at the DFS Army for NASCAR, for the MMA. Like, I use that information. I read the articles. It helps me be able to maximize the amount of time it takes me to do all the other things that I'm working on. So the one thing I never worry about paying for is information, as long as it's quality information, and then understanding how to dissect that information and use it for your benefit. Anyone who ever says that they don't pay for it, it's beyond me. I worked on Wall Street, and there's people who are really good traders, and then there's really good analysts, and very rarely are both intertwined. Right, so I consider myself to be a really good trader, and then what I'm good at is compiling everyone else's information and then spitting it out into a trade, or in this case into a bet, or into daily fantasy sports. Let the guys who that's what they do break down the games and figure out projections and all that stuff, and then you just have to sit there and put the lineups together based on all that information you get. It's going to save you. The amount of time that it's going to save you is worth the money, I think, is what I'm getting at.
Very, very simple. I thank you for saying that. You put it really well, and it's absolutely true. Anybody, you can spend all of your time studying and researching and putting data together and creating projections and tools. Anybody could do it. But I mean, how much is your time worth? That's kind of how much time do you have in life, and how much is your time worth? That's a real question. And not everybody's time is worth that much, because I do hear people say they'd rather spend 6 or 7 or 8 hours in a day compiling all this data and doing all this than pay, $1.50 a day to have it done for you. And I get it, man. People like that, their time isn't worth that much. They could spend 6 hours for $1's worth of, or rather than spending $1 or $2 on some information. I get it. That's great. I love it. Please do that. And I hope you at me on DraftKings. My head-to-head is Chief ST anytime. In the meantime, for John, Statsational, Alessia, and myself, and for No House Advantage, we appreciate you guys checking them out. This is Geeks Vegas Lines Week 2. We will be back next week, as always, with another betting lines and DFS angles breakdown every Wednesday at this time. Take care, everyone. Good luck this week.